you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to also follow the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steele Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. And don't forget to also enter our contest for 2 free tickets to the Florida Panthers versus New Jersey Devils game on December 21st by sending a screenshot of your subscription to the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube channel and your 5-star rating on whichever podcast app you listen to Locked On Panthers. We will announce the winner this Wednesday on Winans Wednesday, a week before the game, of course, to give you guys plenty of time to say yes or no if you're able to make it, if you end up winning the tickets. But make sure to enter that contest because Tuesday night will be the deadline for that. So, Cats fans, this awful weekend for the Panthers, as bad as it can get, and the roller coaster is right now down for the Cats. It's right now right now we're in the downs as far as life as Panther fans, as far as our fandom. It don't allow. But by the way, don't allow this to affect your personal life, please. That's all I ask of you. Just remember that this is entertainment at the end of the day. And that's what I also got to say to myself, being a fan of this team. But man, it's just frustrating to the effort that was put out by this team as far as these last 2 games. I mean, just let's first start off this show with the game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and just the Lightning just continuing to use their size to their advantage. I mean, you look at as far as heaviest rosters weight wise, I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning being the 6th heaviest team in the NHL, while the Panthers are the 23rd heaviest team in the NHL, and it showed on the ice. The Tampa Bay Lightning were winning board battles. I mean, that's how the first goal happened. And what are the chances that all the crap that has been talked about between the Panthers players and Pat Maroon, and of course the fans making certain jokes towards Pat Maroon, and look what happens. His first goal of the year comes against the in-state rival Florida Panthers, and after not scoring all season. And the Panthers, they really started off firing on all cylinders. I mean, getting about 7 shots in the first 10 minutes of the first period. You would think that you see that they would be on pace for possibly 45 shots on goal, but the rest of the game just continuously for the Lightning, they're just continuing to get in the faces of Panthers players. Their sticks are very active. I mean, even the physicality was up in the beginning of the game. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk laying a big hit on Victor Hedman, but zone exits were also a problem for the Panthers as well. I mean, Josh Mahura had a just got out of the Panthers zone and then just turns the puck over, and then Ryan Lomberg has to be a victim of a penalty that gives the Tampa Bay Lightning a power play. Even though 3 seconds later the Tampa Bay Lightning commit a penalty themselves right off the faceoff, and a little bit of 4-on-4 and 4-on-3 as well. The Tampa Bay Lightning just use that open ice to just continue to fire on all cylinders, and the Panthers really didn't have anything, any answers for that 4-on-4. But for me, I mean, just looking at this game, yeah, you look at the box score and you see 1-1 going into the third period. The Panthers have a chance, but this game was lost before the third period. 4 power play opportunities, 7 minutes and 39 seconds of being up a man in the second period, and you only generate 3 shots on goal throughout all that. I mean, let's talk about how that happened. I mean, they couldn't exit their own zone on the power play The Tampa Bay Lightning were winning faceoff shorthanded. There was a backhand pass by, I believe, Brandon Montour trying to get it back to the point, and it goes out of the zone, way out of the zone. That's how far I believe Aaron Ekblad was from that puck, even though that wasn't on him, I believe. But even after that, Zach Dalby ties the game on, honestly, which that goal was a little bit lucky. Mikhail Sergachev didn't have the best game. I mean, he had a penalty on Ryan Lomberg after Ryan Lomberg creates a steal and goes for an opportunity on Vasilevsky. And even though he had a goal, which we'll talk about that goal later, Sergachev didn't have a great game for Tampa Bay. And you could even ask Adam Daker of Locked On Lightning. But going back to the Panthers, even when Zach Dalpe scored, which the Panthers could have easily been shut out. You you had two more power play opportunities in a short span. A very juicy rebound, and Barkov just misses an open net and doesn't get his first shot on goal until 5 minutes into the third period. And that's your captain. I know he was out sick for a while, but it's just something's off about this team. The passes aren't connecting. They're pinned into their own zone. I mean, Mahura and Forsling at one point were on the ice for 2 minutes because they couldn't get a clear out of their zone. Braden Point beats Sam Bennett creeping up into the low slot and then beats Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky was the least of the issues for the Panthers. There's two Panthers that collided into the neutral zone, creating a rush, which Bobrovsky was able to stop. And let's talk about that goalie interference call. That wasn't the reason why the Panthers lost. Again, that 7 minutes and 39 seconds of being up a man, because 21 seconds of that carrying over to the third, which the Panthers didn't do anything with. That was what lost the Panthers this game. And they just couldn't take advantage of possibly having more time in your offensive zone, which the Panthers at times just really couldn't even. Their zone entries were they were struggling with it, and being pinned, and that's an issue for this team, and the block shots as well, and where you have 61 shot attempts, 19 of them were blocked, and you subtract the 61 shot attempts minus the 19, that's your Fenwick stat, and another 17 missed the net completely. That includes the Alexander Barkov where Vasi was out of his net and misses. And just once again, the goal. Let's go into detail about the goalie interference. Actually, I haven't gone into detail. Ekblad pushes Pierre-Ward Bellemare right outside the blue paint. At first, because I watched actually this game a second time. I watched it this morning. Right now it's 3:58 p.m. on a Monday afternoon. This will be released a little later into the day because I have some obligations. But let's talk about that play. At first, I thought with both of them colliding, which was right on the line of the blue paint, Bellemare lands outside, but Ekblad's stick is on Sergei Bobrovsky's blocker, which is outside of the blue paint. You freeze frame it, it's right on the line. But then reaches shortly outside, and Ekblad's stick gets in Bobrovsky's blocker. And then after Pierre-Edouard Bellemare's skate goes over Bob's blocker, which is outside of the crease. At first, I was like, no way that can be overturned. No way that should be a goal, excuse me, and that this should be overturned. But now seeing it a second time and seeing where it was, you could see why they didn't call goalie interference on that one. And desperate times came for desperate measures for the Panthers on that fourth one, where Brandon Montour creeps up a little bit towards the board to try to chip it back and keep it in the zone, and gives up a 2-on-0. And Steven Stamkos beats Sergei Bobrovsky. and just an overall just that was just the dagger there. But once again, that the previous goal where Sergachev finds the open net with Bobrovsky down, that 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 did not lose the Panthers the game. And if you're Maurice, if you're Paul Maurice, the challenge is justified. I can justify Paul Maurice trying to take that challenge for the Panthers because it's already a 2-goal deficit and you've generated literally nothing. Once again, 25 shots on goal when you attempted 61, and when it's coming from Zach Dalpe, who mostly plays in the AHL, that's an issue for the Panthers, and the vibes are just off for this team. They're not immaculate. That's definitely I can say that for certain, definitely. But in segment number 2, we are going to discuss the game against the Seattle Kraken, where Bob started the second end of a back-to-back, and the Florida Panthers were hoping to bounce back after losing to their cross-state rivals. But first, we're going to tell you all about SimpliSafe. And at Locked On Panthers, we believe home should be where you and your family feel safest, especially over the holidays. This season, give yourself and your family the gift of peace protection with the #1 rated home security system, SimpliSafe. As of right now, SimpliSafe is offering Locked On Panthers listeners 40% off their new home security system. But don't put this off. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you can get higher priority police response. SimpliSafe is the home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats in your home. With 24/7 professional monitoring service cost under $1 a day, less than half the price of traditional home security systems. With the top-rated SimpliSafe app, stay in complete control of your system. Arm and disarm, unlock for a guest, access your cameras, or adjust the system settings anytime, anywhere. Don't miss your chance to save big on my favorite home security system. Get 40% off any new system at simplisafe.com/lockedonNHL today. That's simplisafe.com/lockedonNHL. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Back on this second segment on this Monday, December 12th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Florida Panthers get 0 out of a possible 4 points in Tampa Bay and back home at FLA Live Arena. And Bobrovsky starting to end both ends of the back-to-back. We discussed that with Nick Fairbanks, whether we were going to expect Bob, of course, with Spencer Knight still being ill, and just Alex Lyon for the Panthers right now is a body for the Cats in case of emergency. So I'm not expecting a start from him. Anton Lundell's still out. Radko Gudas still out. Patrick Hornquist still on LTIR, at least until the Montreal game on the 29th. But the Panthers on Sunday, just 24 hours after being embarrassed and the Tampa Bay Lightning getting in shooting lanes once again, it felt like a recap of a playoff games, from just this past April/May. But didn't get any better on Sunday, and just the Seattle Kraken were taking away the neutral zone for the Florida Panthers. The turnovers in their own zone with Carter Verhaeghe turning it over, a rare mistake by Carter Verhaeghe that led to the Matty Beniers goal, facilitated by former Panther Jared McCann, and the scrambling pucks early with net open and Martin Jones back in his net before the Panthers could try to generate a chance on him. Mark Stahl getting spun around multiple times, an interference call right off the faceoff, just too many mental errors for the Panthers. Once again, Sergei Bobrovsky not the problem this one. If you look at natural stat trick for this game between the Seattle Kraken and the Florida Panthers, you see that the Seattle Kraken were just living in the low slot slash blue paint for this game, and puck retrieval was was an issue for them. They were good on the penalty kill early. I mean, but even 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 then, I mean, the Panthers had less time on ice via the power play on Sunday than they did on Saturday, and they generated even more shots on the power play on Sunday. But even then, they weren't getting it past Martin Jones. I mean, and you're facing a backup goaltender with one of the worst defenses in the NHL, and just unable to generate more than they should have. And once again, this was a game that the 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 not superstar players were contributing. I mean, Eric Stahl, I mean, congratulations to him. First goal as a Panther. I mean, keeps the puck into the zone, and then Colin White from behind the net gets it to Eric Stahl to beat Martin Jones, and that was to tie it at 1. But the Panthers have this thing about falling behind early. And here's a stat for you. Hold on, let me pull up this stat that I wrote down. This season, overall, when the Florida Panthers opponents score first, their record is 1-8-2. When they trail after the first period, overall, 0-7-1. This version of the Florida Panthers is not made to come back in games. I mean, that opinion, well, more like fact, can change. It can, but I have to see it. I have to see it. So now when you watch Panther games, if they fall behind early, I'm gonna think, oh, okay, maybe this is a loss, maybe, just maybe. And it doesn't get any better. Panthers, especially in the second period. Oh, let's talk about that second period. Just struggling to get out of their zone. I mean, Matty Beniers had multiple chances on a rebound. Sergei Bobrovsky with a beautiful save on Ryan Donato with the left leg as he was laying on his side after Forsling and Ekblad. Even after Paul Maurice called a rare second period timeout, goes over 2 minutes and 30 seconds of time on ice in that shift because they weren't able to clear the zone. It's just the Seattle Kraken's forecheck was extremely heavy as well, and the Panthers were just not taking care of the puck. They were not taking care of their goaltender as well, and that got Coach Maurice fired up, which we never see this. We haven't seen this side of Paul Maurice at all this season. He calls a rare second period timeout to just talk to his team and give him a rest, and you see him yelling, screaming. I can only imagine what was said. I tweeted jokingly saying that my over-under was 5.5 of how many swears that he said during that timeout. But it's bad when he's calling a second period timeout and not using that for a possible clutch situation that you'll need to pull the goalie to get the extra skater on and go 6-on-5. And even with, like I said, once again, multiple power play shots for this Panthers team. I mean, this was also a weird game that had 2 broken stick penalties called, one on Forsling and the other one on Jared McCann. And it was to the point where the Panthers were just overall frustrated from the coach, and even a boneheaded play by Ryan Lomberg, which Ryan Lomberg looked to have been high-sticked as he was by Justin Schultz, as he was going towards the end boards. And then just a silly boarding call, inexcusable by Ryan Lomberg to to do that to Justin Schultz. A very, very dangerous play. And it was 3-1 at the time. Assessed the 5-minute major. As of this point in time, at 4:09 p.m. on a Monday, we don't know the status of Ryan Lomberg's of whether he's going to be suspended or not. But I'm not counting on Ryan Lomberg to dress for the next game. We haven't even heard anything from the Department of Player Safety. And also, speaking of the missing players, I mean, the Seattle Kraken were without Jamie Alexiak, as he was this was the first game of his 3-game suspension after a hit on Alex Alexiev of the Washington Capitals. And the Kraken were coming on a little bit of a losing skid as well prior to this. And the Panthers, they're consistently inconsistent. And Paul Maurice even spoke about it to the media, about saying that they have been consistent. But I think, in my opinion, they have been consistently inconsistent. If we're looking at the play on the ice, at least the eye test, the analytics can say something. And miss me with those expected goals being the top of the league for the Panthers. Miss me with that, because the day after the Tampa game, Jay Fresh Hockey decided to show all the expected goals, Panthers being number 1. Real goals, 10th in the NHL. Standings wise, outside of the wild card. So miss me with that. There was just no energy. And Paul Maurice tried providing the energy, but it didn't work. At least for this game. It didn't work. And Aaron Ekblad, a -7 weekend. Worst on the team in plus minus. I know that's not the end all be all, but he's continued to slowly regress. And it's been a constant conversation here on this podcast. Colin White was the best player for the Panthers on Sunday. He even had another setup from behind the net to Nick Cousins. So he was living in what we know as Matthew Tkachuk's spot. And even Matthew Tkachuk didn't show up this weekend. I know it was his birthday. It was Ryan Lomberg's birthday too. Oh, what a late birthday present for Ryan Lomberg. He's going to get suspended. But even for Tkachuk, 37 points through 25 games, but this weekend was just an off weekend for him. So Panthers, I mean, the fourth goal, Ekblad, just a failed clear attempt, which got the Seattle Kraken that fourth goal. Let me check who that was scored by. It wasn't Yanni Gourde. Yanni Gourde was the empty net goal where Ekblad was just flat out beat on the chase. Daniel Sprong. Oh my God, Daniel Sprong was living in the low slot too on Sunday's game, and just a -7 weekend. That's your number 1 defenseman. There's got to be more from the guys on the team, and we'll talk about in segment number 3 whether Paul Maurice's epic rant on the Panthers bench in the second period, what is that going to do for the Panthers going forward? And I think it's a very important conversation for us to have, and maybe predict what it can possibly do. Maybe this will be good. Maybe this will be bad. But first, we're going to tell you all about BetOnline. And BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for all your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football, basketball, soccer, esports, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Third and final segment here on this Monday, December 12th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where once again the Florida Panthers get 0 out of a possible 4 points. Let's go more into depth about Paul Maurice's epic rant, where he just gives it to his team. Yes, once again, it didn't work in the their loss against Seattle. But there is a possibility that this could work post Seattle game. The Panthers have an off day today as we speak. Panthers will be back tomorrow against Columbus. They have some time to think about things, asking about whether they're letting their coach down. And of course, Paul Maurice can ask himself whether he's letting the team down too. Because this is on there's blame to go everywhere. It's not just a Paul Maurice specific issue. It's not just a Alexander Barkov specific issue. It's not just an Aaron Ekblad specific issue. It's just there's just no cohesiveness. There's no energy on that bench. And let's also talk. Let's also talk about this. Patrick Hornquist is missed on that bench. As much as we don't like the cap hit and the production that's or lack thereof that Patrick Hornquist has, when you compare it to the cap hit, he's missed. He's sorely missed because every single shift that he's not on the ice, he's animated on that bench. If he sees the penalty, he's always yelling and tapping his stick as well. That dude is engaged. Coaches love that. Players love that. Obviously, watching these games on TV, you don't always see what's going on the bench. But when Paul Maurice spoke about the lack of energy on the bench, that says something. And they're missing that guy. But Patrick Hornquist isn't going to be around until at least December 29th against Montreal. Unless he has some type of trick up his sleeve, which we've spoken about when it comes to LTIR. But that's a conversation for another day. It's got to come from somewhere else. Sure, it's great that Paul Maurice is starting it. Let's start off with that. What about Barkov? What about Kachuk? What about your leading goal scorer in Carter Verhaeghe? What about your 10 million man in Sergei Bobrovsky? They let Sergei Bobrovsky down. Not every goal was his fault, and he played great against Detroit. I mean, the Florida Panthers defense was also great, not allowing too many shots too. Let's not forget that. But he played decent this weekend. And considering the load that he had to, based on Spencer's illness, they let him down. Where's that leadership going to come from? And I think this could be good for the Panthers. Some time off. Maybe take a little bit of a walk on the beach because a lot of these players live in downtown Fort Lauderdale. Maybe be away from the phone as well and just think and just ask themselves, what am I doing? What can I do differently that I can help elevate this team? Because right now, I haven't even looked at the standings right now. But I know the Panthers are out of a playoff spot at the moment. Let's stop talking about playoffs right now. Let's go on a 3-game winning streak first. How about that? Only 3 teams haven't gone on a 3-game winning streak yet. And this is thanks to Alex Slemp of Full Press NHL for providing that. The Florida Panthers, Columbus Blue Jackets, and Anaheim Ducks. And right now, the Columbus Blue Jackets are on a 2-game winning streak after getting embarrassed by Buffalo just less than a week ago, where Tage Thompson scored 5 goals. Incredible. What a trade for both Buffalo and St. Louis. Something's got to change as far as engagement, even something on the bench, because that changes so much once you do step on the ice. You're more confident. You are you box out in your board battles better. You talk more when you get on the ice about where your player where your teammate is going to be. There And I hope this is more of a hope because I can't guarantee anything. I hope that we see more engagement on the Panthers bench come Tuesday night against Columbus. That's what I'm hoping because the Panthers also didn't forget, at least I hope they didn't forget, that last time they faced Columbus, out shooting them 50-23, throwing a crap ton of muffins at Danil Tarasov, but still lacking quality shots. I hope they remember that and make a change when it comes to their approach in coming to this game. It's at home. This is a second of a 3-game homestand before Pittsburgh comes to town and before going against the mighty New Jersey Devils, who are on fire this season. Doesn't get any easier. Doesn't get any easier. And Chris Letang is back after suffering a stroke for the Pittsburgh Penguins, which I'm shocked, but we'll talk about later on this week about it. Maybe bring in Hunter Hodes of Locked On Penguins to discuss. Maybe. We'll see. But it doesn't get easier. And I hope that Paul Maurice being fired up on that bench after that rare second period timeout gives the Panthers that fire that needed to fire it up. And it's with this being a family friendly network, I can only say so much without swearing about my feelings towards this team, but just know that when it comes to how I'm feeling about this team, it's super frustrating. And while watching the games, when the cameras are off, there can be quite a few F-bombs from me. But of course, this has to be a censored version of it. So also trying to keep even keel at the same time. That the leadership of this team and engagement can be different come Tuesday. Once again, the Panthers were off today. And let's see what kind of team that we see on Tuesday. Because if we see that same team on Tuesday that we did over the weekend, this won't be a fun show to do. But we'll be here. We will definitely be here. On tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, we will be bringing in Jay Forster of Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets to preview the Florida Panthers versus Columbus Blue Jackets matchup. What has happened since their last matchup between these two teams? And once again, Panther fans, don't let this affect your personal life. Once these cameras are shut off and I edit the show, I'm still going to be smiling about my day and don't lash out on people. And more importantly, don't lash out on people on the internet too. It doesn't make this situation for the Panthers better. But it's okay to be frustrated too. It's okay. That is okay. And doesn't help that the Dolphins didn't show up on Sunday Night Football neither. So, but still, be kind to each other. And that's all I ask. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to subscribe to all the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today is a podcast 20 minutes or less covering the entirety of the sports scene with exclusive interviews and the take of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.